You're probably watching this video on your phone, the very thing I'm trying to encourage you to use less. The irony of this is not lost on me. All the things that you pay attention to in a day-to-day life, that's what makes the experience of your life. So if you spend your attention on things that are not necessarily very important, such as your phone, you're basically wasting precious time. It's funny how much of our self-worth is tied up in how we spend our time. We don't want to waste time, yet we spend so much time on our phones, which is arguably not the best way to spend your time. Significant that the average American spends about 4 hours and 25 minutes a day on their phone. And then 2 hours and 7 minutes of that is on social media. We check our emails, we check our text messages, we have our maps, we have our photos that we take, and we make a phone call or two on our phones as well. Sometimes. Of course, we're aiming for a long and healthy life, well beyond some arbitrary age that we are assuming here. But just for the sake of argument, we're going to assume that you're going to be about 80 years old. I got a phone at 16. Back then, at 16 years old, I used the phone a lot less than now, 25 years later. So let's say that you will own a phone for at least 64 years of your life. Doing the math tells us that you will spend about 11.8, make it 12 years of your life on your phone, and that's a shockingly long time. Now, if we reduce that phone usage to only 1 hour a day over 64 years of phone usage, you will now only use 2.7 years of your life for phone attention. So that's about 3 years of your life. So if we compare 12 years to 3 years, that means that you'll get 9 years of your life back if you reduce your phone usage from 4 hours 25 minutes to 1 hour a day. We need to discover how you and me, how we can solve our addiction to our phones. What is the actual root of the problem?
I don't think it's the device itself. It's not the phone. Rather, the problem lies with us. The source of this phone addiction lies with us and our mindsets. The phone is simply a tool that can actually enhance our lives when used wisely. Let's discuss 5 principles that will help us break our phone addiction and pay attention to what we value most. First of all, we need to stop being reachable to everyone at all times and find peace in that, or even find joy in the fact that we're disconnected from the world for a few hours. It's about recognizing that you can't do it all, know it all, have it all, be everywhere, everything, all at once. Really and truly choosing for whatever it is you think is important in a particular moment. And then not letting anything else distract you from that activity in the given time frame you choose to do that in. Giving whatever you're doing your full attention. It's okay to not be in the loop, reachable and available at all times. It's okay to miss out on a phone call. If it's important, they'll leave a message or a text. And it's okay to not instantly reply to a text message or email. No longer will I have my phone in the room when I sleep, and I will use an actual alarm clock as an alarm. I was using the phone as an alarm, but that was just an excuse so that I could be on my phone first thing in the morning, and that might be the case for you as well. The plan now is to not use my phone for the first hour when I'm awake. Whatever is on the phone, it can wait. And yes, like everyone else, I've been struggling with the question, what if it's an emergency? What happens if people really do need to get a hold of me ASAP? In times past, people didn't have that instant reachability for the huge part of their lives, and they did just fine. And honestly, the times that someone needed to reach me instantly, I can count on one hand, thankfully. And even so, it wasn't as if I could do anything in that exact moment either. Not being reachable for a couple of hours is just fine. Next, we have to get used to being bored again. For most of us, we don't even know what being bored means anymore, since we never are. We always have our phone to fill the space. It seems like we need to fill every single minute of the day with something to do. Boredom feels uncomfortable. It's one of the reasons that it's so hard for me to meditate. Just try and sit quietly in a room alone and do nothing, not on your phone. It is hard. Or try eating your lunch alone in silence, no phone. Being alone with your thoughts, it's scary for most. It's also scary for me. But in boredom lies creativity, self-reflection, and self-acceptance, so it's worth to give it a try. It's actually really nice to not be interrupted, not be taken out of the flow when you're doing something that you value. I think it's much better when we ourselves decide when we can be reached or not. I want to decide when I'm available. I don't want that to be dictated by the various inboxes that live on my phone. It seems like we need to fill every single minute of the day with something to do, so we scroll on our phone, even if it's just walking to our car. And I think that we need to get rid of our fear of uncertainty and be open to exploring again. I can remember a time where you had to find your way to an unfamiliar destination with a map. And when you got close and you might not be able to find it, then you had to ask actual people for directions. It was a lot more adventurous back then to go to somewhere you've never been than it is now when we just use our phones and GPS. I'm practicing now to go to places without my phone. Even going to familiar places sometimes gets me a little lost, to be honest, and I'll actually discover new interesting things along the way. It's a scary thought leaving your phone at home when you go do something, but yeah, give it a try. Why not? So if we really want to get rid of our phone addiction, we need to find a way to replace that dopamine hit we get from our phones, and that's mainly from that social media aspect of it. So we should replace that dopamine hit with more healthy, more positive dopamine, such you can get from, for example, exercise, from the sun, being out in nature, or from actual human connection in real life. Now that we've tackled the root of our phone addiction problem, it's time to talk about the methods that we can use to be on our phone less. And then specifically talk about methods to be less on social media, since half of the time spent on our phone is spent on social media. Now, the easy thing that we can do is get rid of our social media accounts and just get rid of the apps off of our phone altogether. My kryptonite is YouTube. For you, it might be a different app. It could be Instagram. It could be TikTok. It might be Facebook if you're as old as me. Just get rid of the phone. Just get rid of the apps and get rid of your accounts, and then, yeah, done. Easy. However, for most of us, that's a little bit too drastic. Same for me. I will not get rid of my accounts. But what you can do instead is make that usage of the app a little bit more, put a little bit more friction between you and the app. And the way that you can do it is to sign out off of the app when you're done using it. And then that means that you have to sign back in. So if you do not save your sign-in credentials on your phone, that means that you have to come up with your username, you have to come up with your password again, you might have two-factor identification. All of that is a little bit of a pain to get through in order to get to the app. And when it gets harder and harder to get to the app, you'll use it less. Trust me, it really does work. I use my apps a lot less just because I have to sign back in. Another thing that you can do that is easy is to just not have those apps on your home screen. Get rid of them from your home screen and make sure that you have to tap a whole lot of times in order to get to those apps. Again, increasing that friction to get to them. Make sure that you will use the problematic apps less. Other things that you can do is you can put your phone on silent. The amounts of times that a phone call that comes in randomly is actually important is pretty much not that often. It's usually a spam call, at least that's the case for me. You can put your phone on Do Not Disturb. You could put it on airplane mode. You can turn off notifications. You can put your phone in black and white, which I personally only do after 9 p.m. because I do not want to be on my phone past 9 p.m. And if I do happen to pick it up for whatever reason, if I see black and white, it's just less fun to use it. Now there's tons of tutorials here on YouTube for your specific phone on how you can do all these things so that you can use those social media apps less. What it comes down to is that we should be in control of our phones and not the other way around. The phone should not be in control of us. We can take back our lives. We can take back our attention and focus on what we value most.